related to the PodAskew Podcast. I am CJ, and with me, as always, is my hetero life mate, Rico. What's up, man?
What's up, dude? I'm drinking a beer for like one of the rare times on PodAskew Podcast.
Even rarer, you're drinking a beer and I'm not. What the fuck is this about?
Even more rare, I'm drinking a beer and it's not like 6 o'clock or anything like that.
Yeah, right? Jesus. So to anyone that's listening and you've got keen eaters, Rico sounds a little bit different today, and let's tell him why.
Well, I am at someone's house.
You are.
I broke in. He let me. I've kidnapped the family. No, I'm just.
Did you get the good stuff at least? I mean, shit.
I got the guest. I once thought this is sort of like a King of Comedy type of scenario. No, in all seriousness, one of the great things about my job, which is, there's very few things that are great about my job, is I get some of the most interesting customers that people I can just bullshit with.
Yeah.
And I've talked about it a couple times in past episodes, but I do have a customer who has a very interesting career because he was an animator for Disney and he's currently an animator for Pixar. And for those who either know or don't remember or don't give a fuck, Pixar is basically the closest thing to a Hollywood studio out here in the Bay Area. So Pixar Animation Studios is like a stone's throw from here. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Doug Frankel.
Hi.
Hey, Doug. How's it going, man?
I am here just confirming. Yes.
Oh, well, that's good.
I had to take the gag from his mouth.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's good that you did that so he can talk. No, but thanks for coming on, man. We appreciate it.
Well, it's the least I can do for my favorite video store and a homie from New Jersey.
There you go. Well, so are you from Jersey?
I am from New Jersey, yes.
Oh, what part?
Ridgewood, New Jersey.
Oh, so you're another Northern Jersey. Are we ever going to get a South Jersey guest on this show, Rico, or what?
No, I think it's just going to be you. I think you're the sole
I'm the
Southern Jersey person. I think if we got a Southern Jersey person, we would just say, I don't like him. I don't want him on my show.
Yeah, you would.
No, I'm saying you would. You'd be like, no, I'm the only Southern Jersey person on this podcast.
I mean, we've had Logo Mike. Does he count?
Sure, I guess.
Okay, well, there you go.
Like him so much?
Yeah. So, anyway,
I like to think of myself as north of the situation, which would make you south of the situation.
yes, and both things to be good is
You know what I'm alluding to.
Oh, totally.
Right.
And it's good to be as far away from the situation as humanly possible. So
I think this whole show was a fucking situation, if I'm being honest.
It was. Man.
Well,
so,
that's a good way of starting. How did you go from Jersey to California? Tell us your fucking life story, Doug.
It's all my mom's fault.
moms are like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, I used to get those little those phone pads, those little, you could turn them into flip books.
Okay.
They were just these little pads with no lines on them. So I'd start drawing from the last page and go backwards and actually animate on these things when I was sitting around the kitchen table, and I'd flip them and show everybody, and they'd be like, oh, that's so funny the way you made that guy falling out of the building and bouncing off the canopies and blah, blah, blah. You should, do that someday. And my dad was very supportive of that as an actual dream because he was a frustrated artist. And the last thing he wanted was for his kid to be a frustrated artist. And so he said, you do whatever the hell you want, kid. Don't you let anybody tell you to be this or that. And my mom was actually in the same sort of school of thought. And so when I went to college to be a psychologist, and everybody was studying away my junior year, so I had no one to live with. All my friends were studying away or skiing, Aspen, whatever. And I said to my mom, I don't have anyone to live with. I don't know what to do. And she said, well, don't you still like animation? You should go to, I heard there was a school started by Walt Disney in California.
Okay.
And I had never been west of Philadelphia.
Wow.
I'd never been anywhere. So, in terms of going west. So So I said to my mom, well, that's so cool that Walt Disney started a school, because I used to lay on my stomach in my bedroom and just stare at this book called The Art of Walt Disney, which I have right there on my shelf still.
Oh, yeah.
And it would have these fold out pages where you could see how they composited all these layers to put what they put on the screen. And I just thought, oh, that is so cool. So she said, well, why don't you explore that dream? And I said, but I'm busy trying to be a psychologist. And she said, psychology, schmology, just have a little fun this year. So I gotta credit her too. And, but I did have to use some trickery to do it, because, CalArts said they wouldn't take me as a visiting student. And, so I said, well, there's no way. And they said, no, you'd have to drop out of college. So I pretended to drop out.
Okay.
And I went to CalArts and I just funneled all the credits back east for my psychology degree, because CalArts does teach psychology.
Nice.
So I ended up with a degree in psychology and a great CalArts student film, a good reel to shop around, because CalArts is,
it's a good thing that if this animation thing doesn't work out for you, you've got something to fall back on. So there you go.
That's right. I have a couch ready to go if you want to lay down on it.
There you go.
Oh shit, man. You'll need more than an hour. I assure you.
Hey, me or you? Okay there, buddy?
All right.
Anyway.
No, you are my psychologist, CJ. That's why we do this every week.
Well, then shit, I gotta start billing you. Anyway.
Bills me, motherfucker.
So you've been drawing from a very early age then, if I'm understanding it correctly.
Yeah, and I think a lot of animators are that way, because we always say you just sort of have to draw. That's the big question: is animation? Is it a talent or is it a disorder?
Okay.
It's like, why do you compulsively have to do this?
Well, you're the psychologist.
Watch
tell
motion
us.
over and over again in a weird, it's not really normal behavior.
Well, for someone who studied psychology, what would be your assessment on that?
OCD.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think Pixar is, you can call it an animation studio, or you could call it a mental hospital for people with OCD.
Yeah, I think both maybe would be appropriate. So,
hey, as long as you're getting paid, that's all that matters, right?
That's right. That's the trick, is you want to get paid for your treatment. You don't want to pay for it.
So yeah.
That's correct.
I'm guessing then that you were a big fan of also watching animation as a kid, right? Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, my earliest memories watching, actually the beginning of anime was my first exposure to animation, I think, because on TV, when I was a little kid in the 60s, so I turned it on, and my very first glimpses of TV were actually right before it went to color. So I turned on, I'd see Astro Boy piped in from and Gigantor, and I just thought those were the coolest things I'd ever seen. And that, along with Jungle Book, which was being made in the 60s. So my whole, and the Flintstones. So, and Bugs Bunny. Those were my four big things were, Astro Boy, Jungle Book, Flintstones, and Bugs Bunny.
So a lot of Hanna-Barbera, a lot of Disney, a lot of, hey man, those are all great inspirations.
Yeah, and Snow White too. I mean, Disney was releasing stuff every 7 years, so I was blown away by the experience of seeing Snow White, which is still, if you adjust for inflation, it's still ranked as the top grossing animated film of all time.
With inflation, absolutely, I would agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, it includes, I think, re-released money, but still,
right. I mean, they've released the Diamond Platinum fucking edition numerous times on Blu-ray or whatever.
I mean, people are spending the money on it still. They're buying.
Well, because there's always a new generation. There's always a new set of kids that can look at this and be like, wow, Snow White, and wow, the Seven Dwarfs. I mean, I think that was the beauty of Seven Dwarfs, is like, there is a character trope for anybody to identify with. Some people are docked. Some people are grumpy. I'm definitely grumpy. There's sleepy. There's natural. There's fucking grumpy.
I would say is actually the key to making that whole movie work. I think I would argue, and this is for another podcast, but that the entire movie hangs on Grumpy.
Huh.
So watch it again. Watch it again. See what you think.
Can you elaborate? Like, it's because he has that.
The arc. It's the arc.
Because
where's the arc?
You're right. So he goes from looking like a grumpy sourpuss to having a heart, blushing at one point, and actually crying for Snow White.
Yes.
I agree. I would agree with that.
Well, I mean, and to your point about it being high grossing, Doug, I think that's also partially because of things like the Disney Vault, where they would lock these things away for, I think it was like 10 years at a time, and you couldn't get them anywhere. Like, you couldn't buy copies unless they were secondhand or whatever.
Sure, yeah. And the video market changed, everything.
Tell me about it.
But I mean, it's ever changing. So, like, people say, I have this vintage VHS collection.
I do.
And
I do.
He does.
And if you grew up in the 60s, then what you've seen is like, small records go to big LPs, and then vinyl goes out of favor, and then all of a sudden VHS comes in, and laser discs and
DVD and
DVDs. It just is like, I can't keep up with it. Yeah. And so when people think they've got the vintage thing, I'm just feeling like saying, okay, just hang in there for a while. You're going to see a lot of,
right.
So, ultimately, it's revealed the most vintage thing of like a movie is like, oh, well, here's the film can of the original film. Beat that.
Yeah, right. Well, in that case, that to me is really hitting the treasure trove.
Agreed. That's the holy grail of film.
You mentioned Snow White, but what would be your favorite television animation? Would it be Astro Boy or Gigantor, or would it be something a little more like Looney Tunes or something like that?
Yeah, I think for sure it's Looney Tunes.
Okay.
It had massive influence on me because it sort of was freeing on a level that maybe Chris Belushi later sort of was up in that zone, even topping it in some ways. But the freedom to just be insane was what I think Warner Brothers was doing more than any other studio. And Mel Blanc was a genius. And I even heard Dave Chappelle in his thing. He said, what was his greatest influence? And he only had a tiny handful. And one of the big ones, maybe the biggest, was Looney Tunes.
I could see that.
Yeah.
I would say that Dave Chappelle is probably like a Looney Tunes character in physical form.
Yeah. Mel Blanc to him was like a hero.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is, if you're able to tap into that part of the subconscious that just cuts loose, that's where you get the greatest, genius entertainment.
Mm-hmm. Well, because CJ and I have done our research, you worked on Tom and Jerry, the movie.
Yeah.
Which, I gotta tell you, man, when I was a kid, I loved watching that movie because it was such a bizarre thing to see Tom and Jerry talk. That to me was, as you're describing, to see something that Tom and Jerry just don't talk. That's the appeal of it. It's two Charlie Chaplins beating the shit out of each other. And then to hear Charlie Chaplin speak,
it's not right.
It's not right, but for a little kid, it's like, okay, that's what they would sound like.
Yeah.
But for a Looney Tunes junkie that you were, did you have some dude, I'm working on a Looney Tunes type movie. I'm working on, because I know your first thing was with Madonna. Your first movie that you worked for was like the opening scenes of a Madonna movie.
Well, that was early on. That was actually the very, very first thing I did was, I picked up the first thing I paid for was there was this little weird Victorian house in, Studio City, part of LA, where they were making, titles for a Saturday morning TV show called Gem. And word had got around that I was like a good fixer-upper of faces. Like I could put appeal into faces.
You were the plastic surgeon for animators?
I was a plastic surgeon. Yeah, and so and they had this Josie and the Pussycats type of rock band.
I remember Jim.
Yeah, and I guess the girls were looking a little gnarly in the face. So my CalArts buddies said, call this guy, he'll fix their faces up. So I was brought in to redraw their faces, and then I started redrawing their hands, and you get kind of crazy, but I got paid for that, and to me, I was just like, wow, I actually can get paid to do this. And then the real lesson I think for kids is I started to apply to little podunk studios around LA that were doing Saturday morning stuff. Not really podunk. I mean, the money was big for them, but the shows were not feature film or Disney level. They were just TV, Ruby Spears and, DIC and those kind of places.
Yeah.
And I got rejected by every single one of them. And finally my old CalArts roommate, Tony Fucilli, said, well, stop being such a coward. Just go to the man. I'm like, the man's not going to hire me. Like, just give your portfolio. He's talking about Disney.
Right.
That is the man.
Yeah, it is.
And I said, there's no way. And so the lesson to all the kids I ever talked to is I had been rejected by every little podunk studio. And I went to Disney and they said, we need you.
That's great, man. Aim for the stars. I mean, you're going from giving Botox injections to Gem, and then now all of a sudden you're working for Disney. That's a rag to riches.
That was. It was just mind blowing for me because you start to judge yourself based on what other people say.
Of course.
And sometimes you just gotta take a dive and all of a sudden you realize that people say what they want to say at the moment, but it doesn't actually, it's not actually where your self-esteem needs to be.
Right.
Yeah.
But looking at your credits here, Doug, it shows that, you said you got rejected, and I'm not doubting that you did, because any artist will get rejected 1,000 times before they get accepted. Whether you're music or animation or whatever. But, podcasters, yeah. But you've got some credits on here before you get to the man that are I think are noteworthy. Working on Garfield's Thanksgiving, and then obviously the big one being Fern Gully, that.
Yeah. That was actually after, what I'm talking about is not Lion King or Prince and the Pauper.
Okay.
I'm talking about as a college student, a bunch of us rented a house in Newhall, California, near in ranch territory.
Okay.
And we needed summer jobs. So we were all just desperately trying to find summer work. And so this is about 1986, 85 or 86. And so I was going around looking for summer work, and Disney said, we need you to help us make Sport Goofy Soccer Mania. And that was a piece they didn't even know whether it was going to be for TV or for the big screen. They were going back and forth on what to do with it, but they needed to get it done.
Right.
And so I ended up literally picking up freelance work from that, and cleaning up Kirk Wise's animation. And Kirk Wise then went on to direct Beauty and the Beast.
Right, right. Okay, well then someone needs to update your IMDb. I'm just saying, but that's beside the point.
Yeah. Okay.
But that's not on you. Someone should be doing that for you at this point. But anyway, no, but that's awesome. Then like Rico said, you just shoot for the stars, and they're giving you an opportunity. So
that's my argument. I keep hitting up Mark Hamill to come on the show. He doesn't respond, but I can't.
Oh, what does he comes into the store?
No, I just tweet at him.
Oh, okay.
I've tweeted at celebrities, and sometimes it's worked.
All right, yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever see the movie Clerks?
I know the poster. All
right, so there's a couple actors that are in Clerks that we've had on the show.
Okay.
And that's sort of how the inspiration for PodAskew is that you were asking earlier how we started this thing. We were both fans of we are both fans of Kevin Smith, the filmmaker.
Okay.
And we were on a Facebook group saying the world of Kevin Smith, and he made a post saying, I want to do another podcast. He and I have never met. We've never physically met. This is all of our interactions is through Skype and through texting.
Well, which leads me to my question: how did you guys end up working together?
He made a post on this Facebook group, and he said he wanted to do a podcast, and I was doing my own separate YouTube channel called Rico's Rants, which was basically my own form of self-therapy where, have a couple drinks, chain smoke, and just talk about whatever I wanted to talk about. It was basically like that asshole at the bar who just wants a friend. That's who I was. I just didn't have anybody around me. So I would talk to the camera, and then so I sent him a couple of those videos. Very like, this is what I do, take me or leave me. I wasn't trying to sell myself, which incidentally, the running joke is that's how I got my girlfriend, and I just didn't shoot. I just said, this is who I am.
Just being yourself.
Just be myself.
Yeah.
So that's how we met. He liked the videos I sent him, and then we did a rough kind of let's talk to each other, get to know each other, and then we did a rough a pilot basically, and we got a knack for each other, and then we just said, all right, let's try and see what happens. That was a year and a half ago.
Year and a half and 68 episodes ago.
Yeah,
wow.
Like we've been doing this for a year and a half, and he and I have become very close buddies, and that's the ultimate irony. Is like this is like a pen pal that you're close to, but you never met your pen pal. You know? So it's like we've done that. He and I keep joking like I need to go to Jersey. He needs to come to California. We just gotta meet up, and when we do, we're going to record 5 episodes just in person because who knows when the next time will be.
Yeah. Well, San Francisco is kind of like a lumpy Jersey with palm trees.
Well,
that's a pretty good assessment. I would agree with that. I mean, I've never been to Jersey. I've seen a lot of Jersey films, but
yeah, no, but there is a very tight connection. I mean, New Jersey is, but first of all, just culturally, there's just a lot of Italian. There's just a lot of crossover between the two areas. So you would not feel out of your zone around here.
Well, I don't know because again, I'm from the southern half of the state, so I don't know that it's exactly the same, but I get what you're saying for sure, Doug.
But New Jersey's small enough. You've had to deal with a ton of northern New Jersey people.
If I can avoid going north of Trenton, I do my best to.
Really? What changes for you? That's icky.
It's not even that. I mess with the state, but there was a petition. You'll appreciate this, Doug. I think being a former resident of the state, but there was actually a petition on the 2008 election, I think, to actually have this state split into two, North Jersey and South Jersey.
We've always been talking about that. Same with California. Literally the same.
Yeah, but see, with California, it makes sense because you take up the whole coastline. We're
you're just blip.
I know it's just like, what are we going for? To try to be smaller than Rhode Island?
Right. Yeah. Hey, great. You achieved you're a winner and a fucking loser. Good job. Yeah. You're still Jersey. Calm down.
Right. Right.
I think Jersey. I think the sign saying "Welcome to Jersey" is just "Welcome to Jersey." Get the fuck out.
I know, but let's just be honest. Jersey invented the light bulb. Jersey invented Hollywood. Jersey invented Jerry Lewis. I mean, it goes on.
Lou Costello, Frank Sinatra, Kevin Smith. I mean,
Meryl Streep and Jack Nicholson.
Yeah, he's from Neptune.
Right, the boardwalk. Jersey invented the boardwalk. Jersey had more fights, battles for the Revolutionary War than any other state.
Yep.
So in a sense, Jersey carried more of the war than anybody else, which means, they get the credit. And New Jersey was the capital of the United States for a while. Nobody knows that.
Yep. I was going to say that. You beat me to it, but Camden was the capital for a brief period.
Yeah.
So
there you go.
Yep.
I feel suddenly out of my fucking depth when it comes to Jersey. I've watched The Sopranos. That's set in Jersey. Does that qualify?
You got stuff to study and learn, see?
Yeah. You know a lot about Jersey, but you also know a lot of, off screen, CJ, he was beginning to tell me some Hollywood stories. So you brought up Nicholson. So why don't you bring Nicholson up?
Oh, I got to hear this.
So, first of all, just to connect it with animation, Jack Nicholson was supposed to be Hades for Hercules.
Hold on. I heard it was him. There was also John Lithgow. There was also I want to say like William H. Macy was a contender, or
there were some contenders, but it was really designed to be Jack Nicholson.
Okay.
And but then
still the animation style, he looked like how he did.
The model, the face was designed to sort of fit him. And,
okay.
I mean, there's always legal questions about like you can't make it too exact, or then you got to pay.
Let's be fair. Hades looks like James Woods.
He does.
And you know what? There's always that gets in there, and then the question is how much of it is the shape of the head or nose or eyes, and how much of it is the animators infusing it with the personality. So you got to really look carefully for that.
Well, I want to touch back on that in a couple minutes, but go back to Jack.
Anyway, so Jack, who is also from New Jersey, as we said, he is coincidentally, he was a friend of my uncle's. Because my uncle in the 60s came out to LA to get into advertising, and I think they ended up in like some scrub league together. They got to know each other, and became buddies. So before either one of them had any huge success. And so I didn't know my uncle until the 80s when I came out to LA. So he was the legendary Hollywood uncle we had, Harry Gittes, who was like one of the beloved guys of Hollywood. He was like the nicest guy in Hollywood to many people. I don't know what everybody thought of him, but honestly, I have only heard good things. When you read like the Hollywood dirt books that come out, he always comes out smelling good. I don't know how he did it.
Hey,
I don't know how he does it.
Doug, not to interrupt you, but how do you spell that last name? Because I'm curious. I want to look him up real quick while you're talking.
Harry Gittes, Gittes.
All right, got it. Thank you.
He produced The Girl Next Door. He ended up producing a bunch of movies. He produced Harry and Walter Go to New York. He produced Going South, starring Jack Nicholson.
Yep.
And they were really good buddies. And they were such good buddies that when Jack Nicholson was cast in Chinatown, he said, I want my character named for my buddy. So that's why he's named Gittes.
Okay.
Gittes. And the story in my family was that our family name Gittes was nobody could ever pronounce it because they would want to say Giddies or Gittes or Gits. And so they carried that joke into Chinatown, and that nobody ever knew how to say Jack Nicholson's character's name. So everybody says it differently in the movie. Anyway, so Jack Nicholson was a friend of the family, legendary friend as I'm growing up, because I'd never been to California or met my uncle. And so when I finally got applied to Cal Arts and got there, I just sort of was thinking, hey, well, it'd be kind of fun to go over to Jack's house. And my uncle was always like, yeah, right. I figured he meant like, never going to happen. And so then one day I'm at his house. My uncle lived on Mulholland, or just like 2 houses in from Mulholland Drive. And that's the famous winding street that's up in the hills that splits, the infamous valley from the infamous, Hollywood Santa Monica zone.
It's notorious because there was 3 legends that lived there within close proximity of each other. It was Nicholson, it was Brando, and it was Warren Beatty. I think Warren Beatty still lives there. Yeah. And they were known as the bad boys of Mulholland Drive. So you're visiting your uncle.
Yeah, I'm visiting my uncle, and I'm just at his house, and he gets a call, and he's like, blah 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 blah, just whatever. And then he goes like, I don't know. He goes, Jack, I don't know if I can do it. I got my nephew here. And he hangs up, and I'm like, which Jack was that? He goes, Nicholson. He goes, he wants me to come over for the Laker game, but I don't know. Maybe I'll go. And then I said, well, you should go. I'll head home. And he goes, all right, well, all right, I'm gonna go over there. You can come with me unless you have something better to do.
What could be fucking better,
right?
Than Jack Nicholson. Like anything if you had plans, you're like, fuck that.
Yeah.
Well, so I very calmly said, let me think. All right, I'll go. I try to keep my cool.
Yeah, inside you're freaking out. Let's be honest. You're like, I wouldn't see Jack Torrance. I wouldn't see The Shining.
Yeah. So we get in my uncle's convertible Bug, and we're just driving down Mulholland Boulevard, and he goes, "Look, I just got to tell you something. This is not skinny Jack you're going to see. He's just finished a movie, and he had to put on a lot of pounds for the movie because it's his character. So he's not going to look, at his best." And I'm like, well, I don't care what he looks like, because he had just finished Terms of Endearment, where he was supposed to play an over-the-hill astronaut. So he was required for his role to get fat, basically. And so we drive up to his house and pull in the gate, and it's dark, so I can't even tell what's going on. I don't know what's where, but small house from what I could tell. And Jack just answers the door and he was like, "Hey, good to see you." And I shake his hand, and I'm thinking this is a little crazy. And we go in, and he's like, my uncle goes, "Don't, watch the paintings. Like, don't knock into them with your shoulders." Because we're going through the back hallway, almost like a delivery entrance. But in the back hallway were like, Picassos and stuff. So
you would say the house looks less like you would expect for a Nicholson home. Like
it's not a grand thing. It's just very
bungalow type of thing.
Anyway, so the bottom line is, Jack says, "What can I get you?" And I'm like, "This is fun. I believe I'm being served by Jack Nicholson." So I said,
"What can I get you?"
I'd like a ginger ale since I am underage.
You were underage?
I was 20.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So he got me a ginger ale, which I proceeded to sit down in his entertainment, like high-tech console room, and I spilled a little ginger ale on the couch. And so I immediately sat on the stain, hoping you wouldn't see. And then the night just went on like in a little bit of a surreal way. Like I could run through these 5 beats that would make you think like, yeah, this isn't totally normal. Like, games going on. I try to bond with him over New Jersey. I accidentally say, Jersey's, a little run down these days, your parts. And he's like, "I don't think so." I'm like, oops. And then
you're pissing Jack off at his house.
Yeah.
You spill ginger ale. You talk shit about his neighborhood.
Right.
Like,
and then there's this guy comes in and he lays down on the floor in front of my feet. I'm like, God, this guy on my feet is like this homeless guy. Jack lets anybody in. But the more I look at his face, it looks so familiar. Like I've seen it before. Well, you think you know?
I think I know who this is.
Take a guess.
I don't remember the actor's name, but I know he was a good buddy of Jack, and he was in the movie Batman.
Well, he was in like every movie. He's a great character actor that everybody knows his face.
Is he the guy who played Bob in Batman? Like he's like the Joker's henchman?
He's Harry Dean Stanton.
Harry Dean Stanton. I was going for another guy.
No, yeah, he was going for a completely different guy.
Dude, Harry Dean Stanton is just sitting at your feet?
Yeah, he's laying on the floor. I'm like, okay, I gotta kick him. Gotta be careful not to kick him.
By the way, rest in peace, Harry Dean Stanton.
Yes, yeah, good guy. Really good guy. And then Jack actually got angry at one point because the back door was open, the screen's closed, and then all of a sudden there's a scratching going on the screen. And Jack just like, because with the Laker game's on, he's trying to focus, and he looks at the screen and goes, "God damn it!" I'm like, what? What's he so mad at? Really? "God damn Brando's cat! How many times do I have to tell him?"
Oh my God!
So he like scared away Brando's cat. I'm just thinking, well, maybe it's not Brando, but it's Brando's cat. Kind of cool to meet his cat.
It must
definitely.
Like, I would have loved to see. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Brando. I always kind of felt he was a little overrated. But like, I would have liked to see his cat just to see him go meow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that was a fun night.
Well, who else fucking walked in? Bill Murray just like deliver mail like the rest. Like, what else happened? You have Harry Dean Stanton, you got Brando's cat, you're sitting with Jack Nicholson, you spilled ginger ale.
Yeah.
Jack Nicholson's giving you shit.
Well, I know. He was. I shouldn't have dissed Manasquan.
No,
that's where he went to high school.
Yeah.
And I felt qualified because we used to go to Manasquan all the time for our summer vacations, and so I knew Manasquan. I wasn't like imagining Manasquan.
Right. You were just telling him. You were telling him
like
the truth.
it's a little run down. And so anyway.
Because he left.
Right. But I was very proud of Jack for, in his own way, sticking up for Jersey. So
Jersey represent.
But that is
Damn
not
right.
that's not my best Hollywood story.
Okay.
I have one that actually is.
You have to. You say that, and then you have to go into it. You can't just leave it hanging there.
Yeah.
All right. I will tell you my Lauren Bacall story.
Lauren Bacall.
Yes, I have a Lauren Bacall story.
I'm intrigued. I love Lauren Bacall.
I do too. I think she is the greatest. And the
original what's her name? Catherine. Ignore me. Go ahead.
You're going to compare her to another actress?
Well, there was another.
How dare you compare her to another actress?
Well, I mean, there's that actress who was like in Crimes of Passion and what's her name? Catherine something.
Deneuve?
No. I'm fucking.
Right.
She looked like Lauren Bacall. Like she even introduced herself to Lauren Bacall as like, "Hi, I'm the new you."
Wow, that's a little ballsy.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
Rico, are you talking about Kathleen Turner?
Kathleen Turner, thank you.
All right, okay.
They look alike, they sound alike, and like
they have that sort of voice, that like resonant voice.
That husky kind of throaty, smoky voice. Mm-hmm. So she introduced herself to Lauren Bacall as "I'm the new you."
Did Lauren Bacall, was she okay with that?
She was like, I mean, I think I'm the old me.
Right. But that leaves room for the new me.
Right.
So maybe they got along. I don't know.
All right. I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
Well, all right, this is a fun story because it sounds like I'm making it up, but I have witnesses.
You had Harry Dean standing at your feet and you spilled ginger ale on Nicholson's
I know.
couch. Yeah. Anything you say, I'm just going to believe at this point.
Yeah, I'm with Rico on this one. Yeah, I'm with Rico.
All right, so here it is. I had always been a Lauren Bacall fan, and so this is, I don't even remember what year it is. It's somewhere between 1990 and well, it's in the 90s. And so we're living in Toluca Lake, California, and I was a fan of Lauren Bacall, and she was doing a book signing in a bookstore in Beverly Hills. And I thought, my mom's birthday's coming up. My mom probably, I didn't know what to get her, so I thought, why don't I go to the bookstore? And this is the infamous bookstore, I forget the name of it, where all the legends will go when they want to do their book signings.
Okay.
And so it's like right at the corner of Rodeo Drive and Wilshire Boulevard. So I tell Leslie, my wife, I'm going to this thing. She's like, I'll go with you. And we go to buy the Lauren Bacall's book and get it signed. So as we park, it's dark. We're walking toward the corner and I'm thinking like, oh my God, look who is passing us up. And, it was, wait, let me get this right. No. That was after. Okay. I go into the bookstore. Lauren Bacall is at the desk. There's a big line. And so I am thinking, okay, I got to get her to personalize this. Happy birthday, Marge. That's my mom's name. So I'm waiting in line. I finally get up to the desk and Lauren Bacall's sitting there and I put the book down and I say, Lauren, I just want, my mom's a big fan of yours. So I'm getting this for her birthday. Could you sign this to her? And Lauren goes, oh, listen, I got to tell you, I'm moving fast through these. I'm not doing any personalized signings. And I said, you got to sign it to Marge. Just say to Marge, happy birthday. And she goes, I can't set a bad precedent. I got to be fair to everybody. And I said, Lauren, she's like your biggest fan. And this would mean the world to her. I mean, I don't have anything else to give her for her birthday. This is it. And Lauren looks at me like, give me the book. So she takes the book and she signs it. And I'm so grateful. I'm suddenly feeling like complimenting her. So I said, you do have the most awesome voice in film history. And she goes, yeah, thank you for that. And I said, no, I mean it. I'm in animation and your voice would be gold in an animated feature. And she goes, really? And I said, have you ever thought about doing voices for animation? And she goes, no, I can't say I've thought about that. And I said, well, I am telling you, I'm working at Warner Brothers because at the moment I was, which is sort of a lucky little connecting point because, her movies, Warner Brothers. So I said, I think you should I'm going to put in a good word for you because we got to get your voice into animation. And she goes, you're going to put a good word in for me? And I said, I am. And she goes, you do that, with like a sort of a chuckle. Because I was, a little punk and she's Lauren Bacall.
She's like, I married Bogart. What do you
Right. So I'm like, I'm putting in a good word for you, Lauren. She says, you do that. And I said, all right. And thanks so much for personalizing it. And she was just like, yeah, no problem. So as we walk out, I'm telling Leslie, I can't believe she never thought about doing her voice, for animation. And, we leave the bookstore and we see this guy walking at us like Captain Ahab. And I'm like, who is this guy? He looks like Captain Ahab. And it was, in fact, Gregory Peck.
I was just about to say, is it Gregory Peck?
Yes. And he's walking with his cane. And as we're leaving the bookstore, I hear him walk in and go, Betty! And she goes, Greg! And they were like so warm and happy to see each other. And she said, like, it's been so long. Anyway, that was just a good moment. But the capper is, the next day, I am crashing in bed. We turn the light out. Leslie's like, TV or no TV? I said, TV. We turn on the TV, and it's Jay Leno. And he says, so, Betty, how's things going? And Lauren Bacall is the guest. And she goes, well, things are going fine. And he goes, you got anything new cooking? Anything special? And she goes, not really, Jay. And then she goes, to tell you the truth, I've just started thinking about doing some voices for animation.
Wow.
And I start hitting Leslie, and Leslie's half asleep. And I'm like, Leslie. And she opens her eye and she goes, yeah, don't worry, I heard it. I'll back you up when you tell this story.
Oh, that's awesome. You said that was on Leno?
Yeah.
He's going to try and find it.
I got to find that now. Yeah.
I've had trouble finding that one.
I'll do what I can, but that said, I just want to try to help you with your story. Not that I was there or anything. Was it the Phoenix bookstore? Is that you? Because based on the streets you gave, I think that's the one.
I believe it is like on Wilshire, just near the corner of Rodeo Drive.
Near Rodeo. Okay, I was at Beverly in Wilshire. Hold on, I'll find it.
Oh, no, Rodeo, and I'm not sure if the bookstore is still in business.
Right.
But if it's got a legend, attached to it, there may have been an article or something about it.
Yeah. And by the way, if I've always told this story, almost positive it was Jay Leno. We were both kind of sleepy, but you can also check Letterman. There's a possibility it was Letterman that
okay.
Lauren Bacall.
Well, did Lauren Bacall ever do animation?
Then afterwards,
yes.
She started doing animation.
I got her. I have her IMDb up. She hasn't done a lot, but the two biggest things, Rico, that I have here are from 2008. She did Scooby-Doo and the Goblin King, and she's been on Family Guy.
Oh, fucking classic Goblin King. Oh, that's the best one.
Yeah, you know.
So she dipped her toe in animation. She didn't.
And I like to think I helped her out.
I would agree. I think you planted that seed.
Yeah.
For her to do Goblin King.
She did do Howl's Moving Castle, which for anime fans, that's a big title. So that's kind of big. So
that's definitely her biggest thing.
But I think she went on to do something in the 90s that was shortly after I had that conversation with her.
Well, in 99 she did Madeline, Lost in Paris.
Wasn't that a lot?
Yeah.
Was that animation or there's?
It's animation.
I think that was. Yep. I think that was the one that followed our meeting with her.
Okay, yeah, because that's really the first anime thing she did, from what I can see. So I say
that people were, when they listened to her voice, they thought it was Kathleen Turner. Maybe. Because Kathleen Turner had just gotten, she just did Jessica Rabbit, so there was that. Oh, that husky, seductive voice. It's either Bacall or Kathleen Turner.
Yeah.
But that's a fucking amazing story, Doug.
It really is, yeah. I
don't know if it tops Nicholson and Harry Dean Stanton.
Really? It does for me, because it's like 3 acts.
Oh.
There's the let's go to the bookstore, then you meet her, and then ka-chow. It's on TV.
It's definitely a short. Yeah. I think.
I want there to be a PS where like you got her the job and you helped animate her.
Well,
that's what that would have.
No, but I do have a Holly Hunter story, which is that I was working on Emperor's New Groove, and my big thing was we got to get Holly Hunter for the voice. Got to get her for the voice. And I made a big pain in the ass of myself pushing the production to get the voice. And finally, they couldn't take it anymore. And they said, look, we brought her in, we auditioned her, and she wasn't right for the part. What can we tell you? And I was like, all right, I'll keep quiet from now on. At least you gave it a shot. And they're like, thank you. So fast forward to Incredibles 2, which I'm animating. And, I'm sitting in the screening room. We're going over a scene because I was animating, Mrs. Incredible, who is the voice of Holly Hunter.
Holly Hunter's the voice of, yeah, okay.
Right. And so, I never disagree with Brad Bird on a scene, basically. I would almost never ever. This is one of the few times where we just weren't seeing eye to eye exactly on what to do with Helen, Mrs. Incredible. And so we start going back and forth, and it got to the point where all the animators were actually out of the screening room now. This is like a post review discussion where we're trying to figure this out in the dark with me, Brad, and like 5 other people in the room. And it's dark, and we couldn't figure out whether she's in the limousine with the family, and we couldn't figure out whether she should look at Mr. Incredible or look at Violet, or where should she look for this shot, because it's all so crowded and you're just going to bump noses. And so Brad's like, well, look, and he kind of gave a huff. And then the producer said, look, if you guys can't decide, why don't you just ask Holly? We're like, okay. And then he goes, she's right here. And it was literally like some kind of, like someone had beamed her into this dark room, and she's sitting next to me on the couch. And so I'm like, what are you doing here? And even Brad looked at her and he said, this is so surreal. And she goes, well, you just keep me waiting outside forever, and it got boring. So they had her like waiting out in some other part of the studio, and she was like, well, let me just like sit in the review at least and see what's something on the screen. And so we said, well, all right, what do you think we should do with her, Holly? And Holly was like, don't ask me. This whole thing's a mystery to me. You guys decide. And so that's almost the end of the story. The real end of the story is, as we're walking out, Brad's like, well, come on, we could chat. We could all chat, meaning like we could talk with Holly as we're heading to the next thing. So I'm walking with Holly, and I'm like, I gotta bring up this Emperor's New Groove thing, and I was like, Holly, I just want you to know, I really was pushing for you, years ago as the voice for Chicha on Emperor's New Groove. I really thought you would have been perfect for it, even though Wendy Malick did a great job. But before I'd even thought of Wendy Malick, or Disney had thought of Wendy Malick, I was pushing for you. And she goes, oh, well, thanks so much. And I go, and I said, the annoying part was that, that first they were resisting it, but I do want to apologize because they, the way they brought you in for the audition, and then they didn't go for you. I think they should have gone for you. And I said, unless they were lying about it. And she looked at me, and she looked really sympathetic, and she goes, I got to tell you something. They were lying to you about it.
Oh,
they never brought me in.
Oh man.
Brought me in for that. And that's how you find things out in Hollywood.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and then we just get to, like, we watch the movie, we're like, Holly Hunter would have been good in this role.
Yeah, right?
Doing great.
I have a question I have to ask, because I'm really curious about this, because you have done, obviously, hand-drawn animation, and now working on Pixar, which is primarily, if not completely, computer animated. And I'm wondering, what is the biggest difference, besides the obvious of computer versus, cells, to doing the different types of animation, and which one do you prefer?
Well, it's funny. This is like, we're actually all evolving as artists with the technology.
Sure.
So we were all very reticent about computers originally. I mean, most of us, almost all of us. Some animators wouldn't even allow a computer in their office or didn't want to touch it when it first got introduced in Pocahontas, I think it was, in order to shoot our drawings, so that we could have a little down shooter, and we would shoot, and then you could change the timing on the computer, which was a whole new thing.
Right.
1995. So we loved paper. We loved the feeling of it and the sound of the flipping. And even to this day, if a new Pixar animator hears flipping, like they've come into my office and they'd be like, "Did I hear what I thought I heard? Like, was that flipping? I've seen that on like videos, you know."
Wow.
I know, it's like really disturbing.
Is there a dead tree in here?
I think we as artists, it's hard not to start liking the computer as it becomes, more user friendly, and you get pressure sensitivity, and maybe people that want texture can lay down this sort of vellum over the screen, and there's all these things that make it more comfortable for artists. And then the fact that you can change up things so easily means that, like, even at Pixar, artists that would never do storyboards on computer, when I got there, they're like all doing storyboards on Photoshop now.
Right.
But the big thing is directors still miss the feeling of looking at a wall of storyboard drawings pinned up, because if you're not clicking through, but you're looking at a whole wall, your eye can jump back when you want to check something as a director. Like, hang on a second, and you just pop your eye back to a drawing that was, another part of the wall. And you can't do that when you're just clicking through a slideshow, one image at a time. So I think there's a movement to try to figure out how to go back to that sort of ability. I don't know whether that's, a giant screen where on a whole wall that's a screen, or some way to like click out of it and, see all panels for a second. But
right.
That's, there's always like, what do you lose? What do you gain? And then how do you balance it? So at this point, I think computers have won the argument that overall artists that used to be really staunch paper people I think they are won over by the computer for the most part now.
Okay. I have a follow-up, Rico, but if you have something, I don't want to interrupt you. But
No, go for it.
I'm curious, Doug. I mean, at this point, all we see is CGI type animation. Whether it be like, Ratatouille, Cars, Wreck-It Ralph, that style of animation, which they're all great. We enjoy them, but do you think the days of hand-drawn are done? Do you think we'll ever see a full-length hand-drawn feature like that again?
Yes, I do think so. I mean, it's going to be a special event, that kind of thing.
Right.
But the boutique-y side of it will never go away, because, it's like TV and cinema didn't kill plays.
Right.
And even Pixar as a studio that loves to have little bits of 2D in their stuff now and then, or do a short that's 2D.
Right.
And the credits are very often a lot of 2D animation.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So, credits, at the end of like Incredibles or.
Right.
Ratatouille, hanging on the wall back there. The animation in the credits there is all 2D, if I recall.
Yes. Yeah. I think Wall-E,
Wall-E and mine. It's been a while since I've seen Wall-E.
Yeah, me too.
I think I'm trying to remember this. I think you worked on technically the last 2D full-length animation film, which was Home on the Range.
Except for Princess and the Frog came out.
Yeah, that came out after Rico. He didn't work on it, but he's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Home on the Range was the last of the what do we call the contiguous 48 contiguous states? So there's the contiguous animation history of Disney, and Home on the Range would be the end of that.
Okay.
Yeah. Because they got rid of all the 2D animators, or at least the 2D department shut down for the first time ever. And so it was dead and gone. And then Princess and the Frog was an attempt to resurrect desks and equipment and rehire people to try to bring it back. Yeah.
Yeah, Rico, just for a time frame for you, the Home on the Range was 2004, Princess and the Frog was 2009. So he's right. There's that last hurrah.
I apologize. I haven't seen either. No, that's not true. I did see the Princess and the Frog. I just sort of it was playing at work, and it was sort of one of those movies like let's put on, kids movie background kind of stuff. I promise I'll watch it.
Yeah, it's got good stuff in it. I don't think it's probably ranked as, one of the great classics, but it was a sincere effort and they brought back a lot of good people. They had, Andreas Deja and Eric Goldberg and a lot of great people on it. So there is good stuff to see in it.
Oh no, I'm always been interested in seeing it. It's just sitting down watching it.
Yeah.
But to reiterate, I also did rewatch a couple of the films that you've worked on before. Like I did rewatch Emperor's New Groove, which is so goddamn underrated.
Yeah, it is.
It's so underrated.
I think, let me ask you if you guys agree with this, but as a Looney Tunes guy, I feel that it is the funniest animated feature Disney's ever put out.
I would agree.
You don't have to agree. I want to hear what you guys think.
Look, my one exception is I think Robin Williams as the genie is funnier than anything no offense, is funnier than anything else that could have come out. I think, I'm speaking from my own child.
This is interesting.
My own childhood is that Robin Williams, like there were movies, Disney movies and animation films that like set my childhood. And you, go ahead.
No, to Doug's point though, because you're right, Rico, the genie is unprecedented and untouched, but that's a character within a movie that's as a whole not very funny. To Doug's point, the Emperor's New Groove as a overall movie, I think I have to agree with him, might be the funniest thing they've put out because it's from start to finish pretty much comedy. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. By that demographic, I would agree that the Emperor's New Groove is probably the funniest. Before or since, I don't think there's really been anything of the standard Disney Renaissance classics films. I would say I think some of the other later Disney Pixar films, I think are probably just as funny. Like I think Toy Story is pretty funny. I think Toy Story 2 is even funnier.
Well, there's a question. How do you rate it? Do you rate it for how deep are the laughs when they hit, or how many laughs are they hitting you with? Like this is where I always think Casablanca is the most underrated comedy in some ways that I've ever seen. I counted the laughs for myself, the chuckles at least, chuckles. And there were 50 of them for me in Casablanca, which means they were hitting. There was like a good one every minute or two, a couple minutes. And then I go watch a comedy, and I wasn't getting hit with that many chuckles from movies that were billed as comedies. So Casablanca to me is the surprise comedy of the century. And so in Emperor's New Groove, that's where I scored high, is the number of gags.
Well, the gags for sure. The fact that David Spade is playing a llama is just brilliant. Yeah. And John Goodman is always John Goodman. That guy's got a voice that's just, he's the new generation's Phil Harris, if I would be as so.
Right, well, because he also played Baloo.
He did do Baloo, but like that was almost like, well, who the fuck else would play Baloo? Like, Phil Harris.
And by the way, Greta Thunberg, who's been
Greta Thunberg,
yeah, the thorn in
Trump's side.
Trump's side. Her grandfather was the voice of Shere Khan.
George Sanders?
No, he did the Swedish version.
Oh, I was like,
but that's important movie
it
history.
Is.
That's good. You worked on 3 key movies for me. It was The Lion King, and I think you've been coming to the store a couple times at that point. I don't even remember how we struck up the conversation of that you did animation, or I knew you worked for Pixar. I didn't know you'd worked for Disney, but then I think I was just talking about The Lion King, and I said like Scar was like the most influential like villain I'd ever seen.
Oh, yeah.
And you basically said, oh, well, thanks. And I'm like, what did you have to do with it? I'm like, if anything, I should thank Jeremy Irons. Like, no, I did some of the animation for Scar.
Yeah.
And that was for me personally, like, that was kind of like, that was my Nicholson moment for me.
All right.
Because I was like, oh my God, like you drew my childhood. Well, you made me terrified of fucking lion. That looked, and I mean, because I'm throwing back to that what you said, which is you don't want to obviously animate the character to look like the actor who's portraying the voice. But let's be honest, Scar looks like Jeremy Irons, and there's
a resemblance, yeah.
There's a resemblance.
Well, but you can also look at Scar and then look at Jafar, and they've head on. If you look at them straight,
you're right.
They look pretty similar.
Yeah.
You're right. Scar is just their even names are even really similar. It's just Scar. Yeah. It's the
call him just Scar.
Just Scar. Yeah. It's mouth. The mouth is over extenuated by moving.
Yeah.
And you did that with the next film with Ratcliffe, the villain in Pocahontas. Now my question is
well, what did I do with Ratcliffe? What are you saying I did with him?
He has this. There is a similarity where the villain, whether it's Jafar, Scar, or Ratcliffe, their mouth is over extenuated. Like every syllable is exaggerated because it's animation. It has to be exaggerated to. We also have to make the villain look grotesque.
But I got credit with the guys who designed those characters. Like Andreas Deja designed Scar.
Okay.
So those mouth shapes were already on the model sheets. I contributed to a little bit of the model sheets, but for the most part, Andreas really did that.
Okay.
And so I was trying to honor what he did with the way he drew the mouth shapes.
Okay.
And with Radcliffe, Duncan Marjoribanks was the guy who designed Radcliffe. Mm-hmm. So whenever I was like, okay, I'm going to animate Radcliffe, I'd swing by Duncan's office and I'd say, I don't know how you would handle this particular, like, ooh. How would Radcliffe go ooh? And he'd like take a pencil, he'd do like a quick sketch, and I'd be like, really? That's how you do it? And then he'd like, yeah, and I would just try to stay true to that.
So there's not to demean your artistic talents in any way, but you are, for those characters, it's not like this is how I'm drawing it. I just happen to draw like this. You are adapting someone else's work.
We all have to adapt to a consistency. And that doesn't mean that, like, we're all influencing each other, but we also do all have the point person we agree on for the character. So that means that if we're not being consistent, we got to have somebody to turn to. Mm-hmm. And so, like for Scar, it was Andreas. There were 5 of us animating Scar.
What would you say is the closest
might have been 6
animation that you just free drawing from your own brain?
Yeah.
What was your style closely resemble? Like, I know it's a hard question to answer, but like when you I see drawings around your house.
See, I drew Audrey right there.
Yeah. So is that how you typically draw, or are you finding yourself adapting to someone else's style?
Well, for me, I mean, to be in animation, you have to adapt. We all have to adapt to whatever what the director's asking for. What's the look? But for like Eric Goldberg, he wasn't drawing in his style. Mm-hmm. He was adapting to was it Hirschfeld or Scarf? Gerald Scarf. Oh my God. See, I'm having a brain fart.
That's all right.
I think he was adapting to Hirschfeld, the great New York Times caricature artist.
You're talking about for Incredibles or for?
No, for Aladdin. And so when he did the genie, if you'll notice all these swoopy shapes, they were him trying to emulate a different cartoonist named Al Hirschfeld. And Gerald Scarf. Okay. So yes, Al Hirschfeld was the inspiration that all the artists were trying to emulate when they were doing Aladdin, which I did not work on. For Hercules, Gerald Scarf was the inspiration. So all the animators were trying to emulate Gerald Scarf, and that can be a good thing when you sort of say, okay, we're all looking at this one artist, because then at least for 2D animation, there's a way to come together and try to search for consistency. Otherwise, in CG, you don't need that as much. You still need it because if you start moving stuff around weird, it's going to look different. But at least you're starting with basic shapes that are built into the model. And that's sort of like a head start on consistency.
Okay.
That makes sense? It's like you're being given the race car, so you have to drive it, but the car's already built. With 2D animation, every animator has to kind of build a race car from scratch that they're going to move around. And so that's an extra challenge.
Rico,
yeah, it makes sense.
There's a look at the guy's animation style that he's talking about.
Wow.
Yes, yeah. So that's
I see it.
So if you can sort of tell, like, think of some of the characters, and there'll be plenty of this on Google, like Gerald Scarfe as basis for Hercules. You'll be able to find that.
So you also worked on The Hunchback of Notre Dame, which for me, whereas Emperor's New Groove I would agree. Now that I'm thinking more and more about it, I would say Emperor's New Groove is the most underrated and as well as the funniest Disney movie because it breaks the fourth wall. The animation's crazy and zany. Just the little jokes like, pull the lever, Kronk, and then wrong lever. Why don't you even have that lever? Like shit like that.
Yeah.
Is what makes it funny.
Eartha Kitt was so funny.
Perfect for that role. And Patrick Warburton as Kronk.
Yeah, he's great. He was great.
Oh yeah. Like he just has that. I love that he's just like a chef. Yeah. He's just a cook who just happens to be a big bodyguard.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, pound for pound, Hunchback of Notre Dame is probably one of the darkest Disney films.
Yes, it was too dark in a way because at least for the trailers made it look like a big party. Mm-hmm. So I think it was definitely darker than the trailers, which might have thrown people.
I mean, when I was a kid, it was definitely dark. I mean, the whole Frollo is obsessed with Esmeralda to the point where he's like, if you don't sleep with me, I'm going to burn you at the stake.
Yeah.
And he's like consumed by Catholic guilt and shit.
Yeah.
And then the fucking gargoyles.
Yeah.
Like the gargoyles were at a little bit of levity, but like almost to the point where I'm like, this movie would have been almost like it's 95% perfect as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. We did argue about that. Like, okay, how do you find the levity? Are these guys too goofy? Or how much goofiness do we need? That is always an ongoing debate in any movie, like how to get the balance point between the heavy and the light stuff.
Do you ever work with the voice actors?
I had to work with Wendy Malick. I had to work with Owen Wilson. Yeah, I've had to work with some of them.
So you worked with Tom Hulce?
No.
Who he voiced Quasimodo. You worked on Quasimodo.
No, I didn't. I never met Tom Hulce on that production. Although I did actually, just out of some bizarre situation, I had Thanksgiving dinner with him, which was
what the.
I know it's a little weird.
Yeah,
you know who Tom Hulce is?
No, I don't off the top of my head, but
dude, he's Mozart in Amadeus.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, I know who that is.
Thanksgiving dinner with fucking Wolfgang.
I did, yes.
I'll have to say that for. I have something I want to share with you, but before we get there, Doug, you have to come back at some time when you can, and because there's so much more here that we haven't even gotten to, I'm sure.
We really talked about Pixar. Like, we really barely even scratched the surface.
We
spent too much time talking about Jersey.
Yeah, hey, you gotta talk about Jersey. But, no, if I can get a little heavy for a minute, because I think it's important. So, this past Wednesday was actually the anniversary of my father's passing. He's been 9 years now. And there's two Disney movies that really hit home for him. The first one was The Lion King, actually. He had an obsession with that movie, but not in an unhealthy way. Just he loved that movie. There's something about it that just struck a chord for him. And he never explained it to me. And I never, sadly, was... I never cared enough to ask until it was too late. Basically is what it boils down to. What's that?
Do you think it had something to do with just the father-son relationship?
I don't know. I mean, it could. Doug, it could. I have no idea, but he passed away from a unfortunately a lung condition, but he also had a form of Alzheimer. So as he got to the end, he regressed quite a bit in his entertainment and what he enjoyed, and it was almost exclusively animation. And the last movie that we sat down and were able to enjoy together before he really started to go off the edge was Ratatouille. So that movie holds such a place for me that I can't begin. It is my hands down favorite Disney, especially Pixar movie because of that. And I will never not enjoy that movie. And being that you worked on it, I just really want to say thank you because you helped bring my father and I one of our last real good moments together. And I don't mean to get so heavy, but I guess it's been on my mind anyway because of his anniversary being last week, and then we're sitting here talking to you, and I saw that on your credits, and I had to thank you. So,
well, I'm glad that it really was able to do that. I know we all put a lot into it for trying to get sincerity into it, like meaning, to make it meaningful. And if it could be meaningful to your dad in a way that brought you guys together, that's and I had just lost my mom actually. Right as I was starting it, so I kind of know where you're coming from.
Yeah, that movie is always going to be like number one for me. You know, regardless of what I enjoy, and Rico will tell you, I enjoy a lot of the other movies. I own quite a few, but that one more than anything will always hold a spot. So, I
want to give kudos to the director on that too. Brad Bird's the director of that. He had to jump in there and basically lay down the tracks in front of a moving freight train. And because, that we had lost the director that was setting it up. And so all of a sudden it was like Brad, who knows nothing about really French cooking or Paris really, and so he has a big heart and, legitimately, like there's a lot of shallowness in Hollywood, but he's not that. He's got a big heart. He tried to put that into it. So I'm glad that your dad felt it,
Oh, he totally did. And he loved it. And he had trouble like working the DVD player. So he would say to me all the time, like, come over and put a movie on. And almost every time he would pick Ratatouille. So we watched it ad nauseum, but it in the best possible way. So, the director you're talking about, is that Jan Pinkava? Is that the guy that left? I'm just curious.
Yeah, Jan gets a lot of credit for setting up the movie, but then, the visions were diverging, and so he went his separate way from Pixar, but, they brought in Brad, who was exhausted from Incredibles.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
And that was really crazy, because it's like, this guy who did, I don't even know if he can cook scrambled eggs. I don't know. But he pulled it off because he is a sponge. He's a savant. And he doesn't hype himself as any sort of a genius, but whatever he does, he's able to process things so fast, so efficiently, and with such respect for the people around him. He's got an enormous loyal following, and it took that in order to pull off the movie. So there was a lot of love that went into the movie and went toward the director, and that the director put into the characters. We all put into the characters. Mm-hmm. And we loved the characters. So if that comes through and your dad was able to grab onto the characters, that's meaningful for me to hear.
Yeah, he definitely did. And I did you too for that reason. Can I ask real quick, because I know we're up against it at this point, but who did you work on that movie? Like, what character was your primary focus?
Colette mainly. I did Linguini.
Okay.
Some Skinner. I did some,
Colette's the woman?
Yeah, Colette, actually, that was my proudest contribution to Pixar, because I conceived of Colette. She did not exist until I thought her up.
Oh, awesome.
I was helping out with Story for a little bit, and we had no woman in the kitchen. And I just thought, this is not right. It's actually accurate. There were a ton of kitchens with no women.
Sure.
But we needed a woman in there because it's time. I want to sing that Brady Bunch song when it's.
There's a story.
When it's time to change.
Oh.
Yeah.
So I just, I conceived of the bare bones of her with her what she would look like and her name and her motorcycle and her, meat station and that kind of stuff. But Brad really wrote it.
There is a slight dirty joke with Colette.
There is?
Slightly. Now, you and I talked about, again, we are on the last couple minutes, but you and I talked about how, there's this sort of this mild conspiracy theory that, the Pixar world is all interconnected.
Yes.
That it's not intended to be that way. It just sort of, there's a ton of coincidences. Yeah. But there are those people, fans like me, that, kind of go through the film and be like, that's a weird, that's a thing in the background, or that's a weird little inner side joke.
Right.
The joke that
and you're probably right half the time,
Well, I mean,
look, it was an inside joke, yes, but not a well planned universe.
But there is a slight dirty joke with Colette when Linguini is trying to not tell her the truth about the rat, but reveal he says, "I have a little."
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
We all knew what what thing. We're we're big boys.
Yeah.
Know.
Do you know what I'm talking about, CJ?
Girls.
Yeah.
So
we knew.
For me, I was like, oh my God, it's a Pixar film. It's a kid's movie, but
basically you back yourself into a corner.
Yeah.
You write something, and maybe you're like, oh shit, this sounds like that. Then you have a decision, should I roll with it? Should we enjoy the fact that there's that? Should we delete it? And so then you're like, what the hell? And you just go for it.
And then scavengers like me, find it. We're like, oh, that's a dick joke right there in a Pixar film.
Yeah, but it's not deliberately absolutely meant to be that, but we're not idiots. We know people are going to joke about it.
Right, of course.
But see, if I could, because I know we're close to the end here, but I would say that and I've had conversations with other people about this where the thing that's great about Pixar films is they're obviously meant for the kids primarily. However, there are moments like that throughout these movies that make it appealing to the adults so that the parents of these kids that have to take the kids to the theater aren't just sitting there for an hour and a half bored out of their minds.
No, it should be a ton for the parents. That's
exactly.
The case. Good one. Yeah.
My brother is the same age as my brother's 10 years older than me. He loves Ratatouille. He watches Ratatouille with his kids. I got nephews that are 6 and 4, and they love Ratatouille.
Yeah. Brad's not right. Look, Pixar's not doing this for kids. We're doing it, and this is like the old wall, like a cliche almost now, but it's not, which is that if you do this for the universal in all of us, you could say the kid in all of us, but it's not, It's deeper than that because it's really the universal in all of us. Then what you're doing is you're finding a way to get the foundation of it. So you get buy-in from all ages, and then you sprinkle in all the extra stuff for the adults.
Yeah.
I think that's an inspirational fucking quote. I think we should end right there.
Yeah, I think we should. CJ here with a few thank yous and let you know how you can get in touch with and follow the show and us. If you want to agree with or yell at us, follow Rico, me, and the show on Twitter. The show is at PodAskew, Rico is at RantsRico, and I'm at M_Blade. Listen to PodAskew on the Apple Podcast app, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or anywhere else you find podcasts. Please don't forget to rate and comment. We want to thank our logo designer and show friend Mike for his work on our wonderful logo. You can contact him for artwork via email at logomike80@gmail.com. Again, that's logomike80@gmail.com. Thank you to Dubbed in English for our opening theme music, 96 Reasons. Thank you to Samuel Lemons for our closing music, Theme Askew. You can find Sam on Twitter at Samuel Lemons, all one word, and his music on SoundCloud at www.soundcloud.com/Samuel-Lemons. Finally, our biggest thank you is to you, everyone, for listening. Rico and I really appreciate your time and look forward to bringing you another episode soon.
PodAskew. PodAskew.